We do have a Truth Social statement that Tom referenced that we want to read for you now. This is President Trump on his Truth Social just a little while ago saying, quite an evening in D.C. Secret Service and law enforcement did a fantastic job. They acted quickly and bravely. The shooter has been apprehended, and I have recommended that we let the show go on, but will entirely be guided by law enforcement. They will make a decision shortly. Regardless of that decision, the evening will be much different than planned, and we'll just plain have to do it again. President Donald J. Trump. Tom, it was supposed to be an interesting evening, to say the least, because this was the first time that President Trump was going to be attending the White House Correspondents' Dinner as a president. He attended in 2011 and 2015, but never as the commander-in-chief. And we all know that the relationship between the press and the president has been quite contentious at times. But there was a lot being made of what sort of tone he might strike tonight.
All right, guys, welcome back to Dr. John Podcast. So this is what just happened, guys. At the White House Correspondents' Dinner, Trump was rushed off stage by Secret Service after gunfire reports near the hotel. Tactical teams moved in, guests dove under tables, and the planned confrontational speech became a chaotic evacuation. The cameras captured a raw, unscripted moment of presidential security breaking down, leaving a room full of journalists sheltering while armed agents secured the scene. And then the video clip emerged almost immediately and spread across every platform simultaneously. It showed Trump visibly stumbling as Secret Service agents rushed him away from the podium at speed. That clip became one of the most viewed and most discussed moments of the entire year because it shows something you almost never see.
I am wondering if you personally feel safe staying at the dinner and what those around you are saying. If it does go on, will people stay or will they bail out of safety concerns?
Dinner service. They're saying that the event, there was an announcement, Jessica, as you were just speaking to me. They just announced that the show is back on. The dinner service is going to begin. I mean, I do feel safe. I have full faith in the Secret Service. There is a lot of law enforcement here, a lot of law enforcement. There's law enforcement that we can see, and I'm sure there's law enforcement and Secret Service we don't see. So I feel completely safe right now, and I don't think they would let this go on if things weren't completely protected. So for now, it sounds like it's going to go on. Some people have left. It's unclear if everyone's going to stay. I don't think they were because, like I said, it was a lot of people were shaken up, and rightly so. It was a very unusual and chaotic situation. And when you see, Secret Service run in, guns drawn, their fingers on the trigger, it is.
In the carefully constructed and meticulously managed world of modern presidential communication, it showed a president not in control of the moment, not driving the narrative, not owning the room, being physically pulled off the stage by other people while the room he was supposed to own descended into visible chaos around him on live television. You genuinely cannot script something like that. You cannot manufacture a more dramatic or more revealing contrast between what was planned and what actually happened. Trump walked into that room wanting to perform dominance over the press corps on their own turf, on live television, in front of the entire country. He came prepared with an aggressive speech and a combative posture in a room full of cameras ready to capture him owning the evening.
It definitely is a sobering moment. So as of right now, it looks like the show is going to go on. It's unclear if the president will come back. He says he wants to. It's, in these kind of situations, the Secret Service will make a threat assessment and they'll talk to the president. They'll let him know he honestly, he can make the call if he wants. Sometimes the Secret Service will make the decision for him. But in this case, it's still unclear if he's coming back. They want the show to go on. The White House Correspondents Association, it's not just a dinner with the press and the president. It's scholarships are given out. Awards are given out. People get together and they're catching up and they're sharing stories and talking about what's happening in politics and the White House. So, people want to stay in it, and it looks like people are sitting back down.
And what those cameras captured instead was Trump being physically removed from that same stage as gunfire reports sent the room into a full, visible, documented scramble. That is not just a dramatic news moment. That is a story about the gap between the image a president projects and the reality that sometimes crashes through it completely uninvited and without warning. And it is a story that raises real and serious questions about the state of security in this country, about the climate of political violence that has been building for years, about what it means when the most powerful person on earth keeps finding himself at the center of these moments. We are going to break all of it down today. Every piece, every source, every layer of the story that goes deeper than the viral footage. Let us go deeper on what actually happened at the Washington Hilton, because there are layers to this story that the raw footage alone does not fully capture, and those layers matter enormously for understanding what this event actually means beyond the viral clip that most people have already seen. Let us start with the context that shaped the entire evening before any shots were fired, because the context is critical. The LA Times reported that going into the White House Correspondents Dinner, Trump had a plan. And the plan was aggressive and deliberately designed. He was going to let it rip with the press. He was going to use the platform of the Correspondents Dinner, the annual event where the president traditionally appears alongside the journalists who cover the White House, to go fully on the offensive, to be combative, to deliver the kind of high-energy, confrontational performance that his base responds to with enthusiasm and that generates maximum media attention and maximum political benefit for days after the event. He was not coming in for a traditional evening of self-deprecating jokes and good-natured fellowship with the press corps. He was coming in to fight. He was coming in with a speech designed to put the media on the defensive in front of their own annual gathering. And that plan required one specific and essential thing. It required Trump to be the dominant actor in the room, the one setting the terms of the evening, the one controlling the energy and the narrative and where the cameras were pointed. And then the shooting reports arrive, and within seconds, that entire carefully constructed plan was irrelevant because the agents move. And once the agents move, nothing else matters. No speech, no plan, no advanced team strategy, no communications calculation survives the moment when Secret Service agents start physically moving the president out of the room. CNN reported the evacuation clearly and immediately. In the scene that France 24 described inside the ballroom, guests ducking under tables, tactical teams positioning on the stage with weapons drawn, police flooding the hotel, helicopters visible overhead, was a scene that no amount of presidential image management could put back in the box once the cameras had recorded it. And the speech Trump came back to deliver was, by every account, dramatically different from what had been planned. Instead of letting it rip, instead of the combative confrontation that had been prepared, Trump reportedly spoke about love and unity. The entire intended character of the evening was reversed by a security incident that lasted only minutes, but changed everything about how the night was remembered and covered. Now let us talk about what France 24 reported about what was happening inside that ballroom during the evacuation, because the details matter and they are striking. France 24 described guests ducking under tables as chaos erupted throughout the room. Witnesses described tactical teams with weapons drawn positioning themselves on the very stage where Trump had been standing minutes before. Police moved through the hotel in significant numbers. Helicopters were visible circling above the building. This was not a brief moment of uncertainty resolved quickly and cleanly. This was a full security response, the kind of large-scale rapid deployment that you see when something genuinely alarming is happening, and the people responsible for the president's safety are treating it with complete seriousness. The ballroom of the Washington Hilton, which was full of some of the most prominent names in American journalism and some of the most senior members of the Trump administration, transformed in minutes from a formal dinner into something that looked entirely different. People on the floor, agents on the stage, weapons out, the president gone, and all of it happening on camera in real time in front of the journalists who were there to cover the evening and who instead became part of the story themselves. And the viral clip lets us talk about it specifically because it matters enormously for understanding why this moment resonated so widely and so instantly, and why it stayed in public conversation far longer than a typical news event of this nature would. A video emerged almost immediately after the evacuation began, capturing Trump visibly stumbling as Secret Service agents grabbed him and moved him away from the podium at speed. And it spread across every major platform at the kind of velocity that only the most viscerally surprising and emotionally immediate footage ever achieves. People were watching it, sharing it, and responding to it before most outlets had even filed their initial written reports about what had happened at the Washington Hilton. And what the clip showed went beyond the logistics of a standard presidential security evacuation. It showed Trump, the man who has spent his entire political career constructing and projecting an image of physical dominance, strength, and total control, visibly losing his footing as agents rushed him off his own stage, stumbling in front of cameras on one of the most watched nights of the Washington political year. And that specific image, not the evacuation itself, but that particular moment of visible physical vulnerability, hit differently for a very large number of people who had been watching Trump's public appearances with increasing attention to questions about his physical presentation and the gap between the official White House health narrative and what was observable to anyone paying close attention. The clip did not stay contained within the political media ecosystem. It went far beyond that. It circulated on platforms that do not normally engage deeply with White House coverage. It was watched and reshared by people who do not follow daily political news at all, because it was the kind of image that does not require any context or political background to understand. You can see immediately what it shows. You can feel immediately the significance of what you are seeing, and the questions it raises do not go away just because the official response moves quickly to reassure and redirect. Now, here is something that is critically important to the full picture of this story, and that the immediate coverage of this incident did not always include. This was not the first time Trump found himself being physically removed from a stage or a podium by Secret Service during a press event. Back in August of 2020, the BBC documented another incident where 2 minutes into a White House press conference, a Secret Service agent walked onto the stage and quietly escorted Trump out of the briefing room without any explanation being given to the reporters in the room. Just 2 minutes in, Trump said nothing as he left. The reporters who were there to ask questions were locked inside the briefing room with no information. It eventually emerged that there had been a shooting near the White House perimeter. Law enforcement had shot a suspect outside the compound, and Secret Service had pulled Trump out of the briefing as a precaution. The Guardian covered the moment live. And what was striking about the 2020 incident was the contrast with this more recent one. In 2020, the removal was quiet and controlled. Trump said nothing, walked off, came back later, confirmed what had happened. In this incident, the scene at the Washington Hilton was dramatically different. The scale of the response was larger. The chaos inside the ballroom was immediate and visible. The footage was unavoidable, and the stumbling clip became one of the defining images of the moment in a way that the quiet 2020 exit never did. 2 incidents, both involving gunfire near or at a location where Trump was speaking publicly, both resulting in Secret Service physically removing Trump from the room. But this version was louder, more chaotic, more visible, and impossible to manage or contain once the cameras had captured it. Let us break this all the way down now. No spin, just the significance of what happened, what it means for the bigger picture, and what questions this event raises that are not going to go away on their own. The first thing to understand is that the gap between what Trump planned for this evening and what actually happened tells you something important about the nature of presidential image management in an era of genuine and escalating threat. Trump came into the White House Correspondents' Dinner with a specific and deliberate plan. The LA Times reported it clearly. He was going to let it rip. He was going to use one of the most high-profile annual events in Washington to go on the offensive against the press establishment, to perform the combative dominance that defines his brand, and to generate the kind of coverage that his supporters love and that keeps him at the center of every conversation. That plan required Trump to be the dominant actor in the room, the one setting the terms, the one controlling the energy and the narrative and the cameras. And what happened instead was that an external event, gunfire reports near the hotel, instantly and completely stripped that control away. The agents moved. The cabinet officials were rushed out. The guests dove under tables. The tactical teams took up positions on the stage, and Trump, instead of dominating the room on his own terms, was physically removed from it by other people responding to a threat that had nothing to do with his plan for the evening. And the speech he came back to deliver was reportedly the opposite of what he had planned, focused on love and unity rather than the combative confrontation he came in prepared to deliver. That is not a minor tonal adjustment. That is a complete reversal of the entire intended character of the evening. And it happened because reality intervened in a way that no advanced team or communication strategy could have prevented or managed. The image that went out to the world was not the image Trump wanted. It never is when the moment goes off script at that level. The second thing to understand is the pattern this incident fits into, because this White House Correspondents' Dinner shooting scare is not an isolated event. It is the latest and most dramatically public entry in a sequence of serious security incidents involving Trump that, when you look at them together in context, paint a picture that demands to be acknowledged and taken seriously rather than treated as a series of disconnected coincidences. We have the August 2020 briefing room incident documented by both the BBC and The Guardian, where Trump was quietly removed mid-presser after a shooting near the White House perimeter, with reporters locked in the briefing room and given no information. The situation only resolved when Trump returned later and confirmed what had happened. We have the assassination attempt that has been publicly reported and documented at length, serious enough that Trump's own White House physician mentioned the resulting scarring on Trump's ear in the health memo as a matter of official medical record. And now we have this Correspondents' Dinner evacuation where Secret Service agents shouted shots fired, simultaneously rushed Trump, Vance, and multiple cabinet officials from the ballroom while guests dove for cover and tactical teams with weapons drawn moved onto the very stage where the president had been standing. 3 significant and documented security incidents. A sitting president who has now been physically removed from multiple public speaking events by agents responding to active threats in real time in a broader political environment that virtually everyone who studies and tracks these questions across partisan and ideological lines acknowledges has become significantly more volatile and more dangerous than what existed even a decade ago. The question of whether the escalating political rhetoric and polarization of recent years has contributed to creating a climate where these incidents occur more frequently is a question that serious people hold different views on. But the incidents themselves are not in question. They are documented. The pattern is real and it is visible in the public record. And the image of a president stumbling as he is rushed off his own stage, captured on video, and spread globally within minutes is not an image that belongs to any normal or stable political moment. The third and final thing to understand is about what this moment revealed and what it cannot by itself answer, and why that distinction matters for how we understand what we are actually looking at. What this footage from the Washington Hilton revealed clearly and beyond any reasonable dispute is that Trump is a repeated and serious target of the kind of threat that Secret Service treats with immediate and physical response at the highest operational tempo. The agents in that room did not hesitate. They did not wait to verify the reports before acting. They did not pause to assess the political optics of hustling the president off his own stage at a major televised event. They moved immediately, professionally, and with complete decisiveness, because their mission is singular and non-negotiable. The president's survival comes before everything else, before the speech, before the plan, before the cameras, before the political moment. And that professionalism and that seriousness of purpose are not in question in any part of this story. What is also revealed by the footage, and what generated so much immediate and sustained tension and discussion, is a specific visual of Trump stumbling as he was rushed away from the podium. And that image connects immediately and unavoidably to a broader conversation that has been running for some time now about presidential fitness, about physical presentation under stress, and about the gap between the official narrative of excellent health and perfect cognitive scores and what people actually see with their own eyes in moments of unexpected physical demand. When a person stumbles unexpectedly in a high-stakes moment, when the careful choreography of a managed public appearance breaks down in the space of a few chaotic seconds, what is visible to cameras and to millions of viewers is not the polished image that communications teams spend enormous effort constructing. It is something more raw and more revealing. And different people are going to draw different conclusions about what that image means. But what cannot be disputed is that the image exists, that it spread globally at extraordinary speed, and that it prompted exactly the kind of questions about presidential capacity and fitness that the White House would most prefer not to have circulating publicly on the back of an already chaotic and visually damaging evening. So here is where we actually land on all of this. The White House Correspondents' Dinner was supposed to be Trump's moment on Trump's terms. His stage, his opportunity to dominate the press establishment on their own turf on live television in front of the entire watching country. The LA Times documented that he was set to let it rip. He had a plan, he had a speech, he had an audience, he had cameras positioned to capture every second of it. And instead, gunfire reports, chaos inside the ballroom, agents swarming the stage, guests diving under their tables, weapons drawn on the stage where the president had been standing, helicopters overhead, and a stumbling president being rushed from the room he had planned to dominate. CNN and France 24 covered the evacuation as it happened and as the world watched. The viral clip spread faster than any communications team could manage or contain. The BBC gives us the historical context of the 2020 briefing room incident that shows this pattern is not new. The LA Times gives us the pre-incident context of what Trump had planned and how completely the evening departed from it. And when Trump came back to the room and delivered a speech about love and unity instead of the combative confrontation he had prepared, that was not a gracious pivot. That was a president responding to the reality that the night had already been defined by something entirely outside his control, and that no amount of aggressive rhetorical performance was going to change the image that was already on its way to becoming one of the most viewed and most discussed moments of the political year. That is the story of that night. And it matters not just as a dramatic and unavoidably watchable news event, but as a window into the actual state of American political life right now, where a sitting president is a documented, repeated target of serious threats, where the security response to those threats is immediate and physical and captured on camera every single time it happens, and where the gap between the carefully managed image and the unscripted reality keeps showing up in moments that nobody planned for and that nobody can take back once they are in the public record. The footage of Trump being rushed off stage after a security threat, with officials diving, agents moving, and cameras capturing the chaos, will shape discussions of presidential security and political violence for years. The moment raises real questions about what happens next time, and no amount of spin can erase the image of a president's carefully projected control breaking down on live television.